Thank you for tuning in to the first episode of a new series of Ostranauts called Bounty Hunter. If you would like to skip the game's overview, the setup of this series, or the tutorial aspects presented at the start, please use YouTube chapters. Ostranauts is a hardcore noir space sim. Manage life aboard your ship, and beware the cost of every decision you make. Scavenge and explore the Boneyard. Create, build, and customize your ship. Hire a crew to help, but remember, nothing is more certain than death and taxes. You start off in debt, having taken out a punitive mortgage on a crappy ship, and every day can be a struggle to survive. For this series, celebrating its 1.0 release, I intend to highlight a new feature called bounty hunting. And the protagonist, Sheppard, has the goal of being a prolific bounty hunter. I'll be starting a new run as the grand recipient of a Coffin ship and clawing my way towards bounty hunting prominence. It's going to be a mix of Let's Play and tutorial. So first thing I'm going to do is jump into the game, and I am going to be following the tutorial initially, but quickly, so that if you're new to Ostranauts, you can sort of follow along. I fully acknowledge that I'll be making things look easy and blowing past some of the basic tasks, but that's because I've covered this game pretty recently, and I don't want it to be too repetitive for those that are coming back to it. Now, during the character creation phase, I already pre-made the character Sheppard. She is a 28, and the game's paused, perfect. She is a 28-year-old straight female shipbreaker who is a K-leg illegal, which is pretty typical for a new run. The starting traits she has is brave, vengeful, tough, fast metabolism, coordinated, cruel, insomniac, masochist, humorless. She is a heavy sleeper, skilled in hacking, spaceship engineering, zero-G ops, armed melee, and working in EVA suits. And those are the only character creation changes I made. I didn't do anything else. And if you're ever wondering, you can right-click on your character and get that stuff here. So we can see brave, youthful, vengeful, tough. And a lot of the traits that I picked here are ones that a bounty hunter would have. So, by default, a new character is typically like fragile and unfit. And obviously that doesn't really work. You can't be an intimidating bounty hunter as you are fragile and unfit. So, Sheppard here is very good at killing people if she needs to. She is tough, she's coordinated, and she doesn't have a lot of the negative ailments that spacers typically have. Alright, so following the tutorial, when you jump into a new game, there is the goals, and there will be a little bit of hand-holding. It will take me maybe half an hour or so, probably less. So step 1, hit spacebar to unpause the game, or the time controls over there. Hold left alt to see and highlight the interactable objects nearby. And there it is. Right click on your portrait or press I, or rather left click on your portrait or press I. And these is what I started with. So I start off with a red t-shirt, a PDA with damage and power viz, and that's it. I don't even have pants. Get dressed. Move the yellow jumpsuit and shoes on the ground into your character in the inventory screen. So in this case, I'm just going to right click and hit equip. And that was my right shoe that goes on the right foot automatically because I right clicked it like this. And equip. Next goal. So press on this to focus on the objective's target, which is this switch right here. And then right click on the switch and toggle the lights on. Collect the pressure suit and helmet from this rack there. And move the tote to my bag slot and then put the suit and helmet in the tote's inventory. So far I have Viceroy cigarettes, a yellow jumpsuit, And let's go get the bag. Here is the tote in the bag slot, and then the pressure suit and the helmet into the tote. Next goal, pick up your toolbox. Pick up. And that now is in my right hand, and it has a soldering iron, a hacksaw, and a handheld unpowered screwdriver. All right, next goal, visit my ship. Walk through the K-Leg station, board your ship docked at the airlock. K-Leg. The door to K-Leg station slides open, and you're greeted by the familiar aroma of station vendor fare. Spot prawn stir fry in suya curry, kebab of chicken in yaji spice rub, Szechuan beef with pink peppercorn. Your head knows that the meat is aquaponic or lab-grown or worse, but your heart tells you that anything prepared by human hands is better than Trencher's chow. Tired-looking spacers circulate between the bulks, the refuel kiosk, and the breaker yard, moving in and out of the gossamer haze of cigarette smoke that is the permanent fixture on the station. The smokes are Singara Viceroys, the breaker brand of choice. Folks here will chain smoke them unfiltered no matter how many times the Toima execs find them for overworking the CO2 scrubbers. Your new ship is waiting in port, not far from the kiosk hub and scrap shops. Once you find it, you can finally undock from this rock. If you want to strip ships for salvage, all you need are the hand tools you own. But you'll need a welder to start remodeling and repairing hulls. Either way, if you're lucky, you can finally start making a living. Something beyond the corporate-sponsored rat race of breaking ships for daily wage. A life you can call your own. Optional goal, install the loose conduit. So if you right-click on this conduit and install, and put it where it wants me to put it, we get a little extra reward. Why not? Sounds reasonable. And I'm going to use time controls to fast forward time because we are not particularly skilled at this task yet. Open the door. Installing the conduit restores power to the door. Search the room beyond for your reward. It's somewhere in the dark. It's this rack here. And we get a tactical knife and a friction stir welder. Perfect. Okay, we're going to continue to visit the ship. And it is right here. Now, a little note about my starting ship. If you're new to Ostranauts, you cannot get this ship. This ship is difficult to survive in, quite difficult to survive in, and new players won't ever receive it as a ship when you're seeking a career. You have to have played before to get it. The benefits of the ship is you don't own a lot of money on it because it is a hunk of junk. It's basically a dumpster with a few thrusters slapped on it as a joke. It's called a coffin ship for a reason. It's basically a coffin with some rockets. It doesn't even have atmospherics. Like, if you don't use it right, you suffocate. Which is fun. That's what we're in. All right, so let's go board the ship as the tutorial dictates. Next goal. Open the Mega Tooltip, the MTT. In order to do that, we just right-click on anything. And then if we go to the compartment, so in the Mega Tooltip up here, anything that we right-click on, as you can see, like if I click here, there's a light here, an extinguisher underneath it, a floor underneath that, and then the compartment, which is the room it's in, and it's telling me to go to the room. So, expand the Mega Tooltip, show more, and yes, it is a room. Cool. Now, in this room, we have about a 1 atmo of pressure, and it is 22% oxygen, 80, or well, okay, not about 20% oxygen, 80% nitrogen. It's not exactly, but yeah, close enough. All right, next up, press L and then the damage button to see how worn out the damage items are. So if we open up our visor, because of the PDA we have, the PDA has damage and power visualizers, and we have already done the power visualizers, right? So I installed, I turned on the switch there to turn on the door, and then subsequently I installed the conduit to open another door. But here's the damage overlay. And the damage overlay, basically the more red it is, the more broken it is. So the station in general, well, except for these parts, the station in general is kind of like kind of okay. Like, I'll give it a C rating. And then my ship is like a D, pushing an F. It's pretty broken. All right, next goal. Right-click on the nav station and restore it. So this is, let me get off of this overlay so you can actually see something. This is my nav station. And whoops, it wanted me to restore it. And if we take a look at the nav station in the Mega Tooltip, as you can see, at red, it breaks. And then it's probably at like 70-ish% if I was to uninstall it and analyze it. But basically, it's not great. All right, next, use the nav station. All right. Use. Now this here is just a little sheet of paper explaining how to move. And I'll be doing this so you don't necessarily need to read this. But really importantly, Q and E is like changing your rotation, and holding R cuts your rotation. So if you hit Q, because it's a frictionless environment, right? That's important. You're in space. If you hit Q, you're going to start spinning counterclockwise. And you will continue to spin until you either hit E to thrust in the other clockwise direction, or hold R to stop your rotation. ADWS or WASD is your forward, backward, left, and right strafing. And regardless of where your thrusters are installed on your ship, you have like equal amounts of thruster in every direction. So there is no, you don't go faster forward or backward. It's all the same. The only time that isn't true is when you're doing a torch burn, which is like a nuclear reactor that produces an immense amount of thrust, and then directionality matters because it can only go forwards. Your torch drive only goes forwards. And this is a docking checklist about how to dock, and a cheat sheet of what the acronyms mean, like VREL is relative velocity, VCRS is cross velocity. Relative velocity is the velocity between two targets relative to one another. Cross velocity is like if you're not going to hit it, if you're not going to hit it, if you're askew, the cross velocity is the speed difference between hitting it and not hitting it, basically how strafing left or right you are, range, bearing, so on and so forth. Okay, back to the... So right now it wants me to switch to my comms. So if I close this, this is the nav screen, and you can always get that cheat sheet up here. It's just like attached to the board or whatever. And then you have a comms console over here if you click this button. And this is the comms. All right, it wants me to hail the ship, hail K-Leg, and ask to undock. So we hit hail ship, select K-Leg, which is the station that we're on, at 0 kilometers, so obviously we're docked with it. And then request undocking clearance. Now, normally you would have to pay docking fees at this point, but they're already prepaid. And the docking fees is so that you can, it's the hookups for like power and oxygen and, you know, the atmospherics that you might leach, etc. Basically, it's parking fees. They're kind of expensive, but they're parking fees. So we're going to request undocking. And now it has been granted. And we can hit the clamps button here to release. Done. All right, switch to the nav controls next, which is this arrow. And then adjust the nav zoom. So it wants us to go down to under 6 kilometers of zoom, which you can use mouse wheel. So right now we're at 34 kilometer zoom. And if we zoom in, we'll be under 6. All right. Press on the white diamond labeled OK-Leg to target it and get detailed information. So now our point of reference is the K-Leg station. And basically, This is a relative velocity. Because we undocked, we got pushed away about 5 meters a second. Bearing is almost 0, so we're looking straight at it. Our range is 226 meters, and that's going to be decreasing because our cross velocity is backwards. Now, velocities are obviously, you can't be like negative. It's like positive velocity towards a target, positive velocity away from the target. And it wants us to tap the E key to rotate clockwise. So now I'm rotating clockwise, as you can see. And now it wants me to hit Q to spin counterclockwise. And then press S to thrust backwards. And what I want to do in this case is only do that if I am staring at K-leg. So I'm going to bring my bearing down to 0 here. So we're basically pointing straight at it. And it wants me to go backwards 200 meters per second relative velocity. There we go. Now in this case, this part is important. I might want to lower my thrust so that there's less jerking motion, because that kind of like instant G's can make it really hard to fine-tune maneuver. And it can also, if you are not your only crewman, it can throw people off their feet and hurt them and damage them. All right, so now we have a relative velocity to K-leg of 200 meters away. And now it wants me to reduce that to 10. All right, so there we go. 180, 170, so on and so forth. Bringing that down to 10. Okay. I basically accidentally just skipped the strafing. Normally it would have me strafe to the right and then strafe to the left, do the electric slide or whatever. For whatever reason, it thinks I've already finished that. Calibrate thrusting left and right. So because it's already finished, I can skip it. So what we're going to be doing is going to the tutorial derelict in the Boneyard, which is this one, labeled Tutorial Derelict. And we want to travel within 5 kilometers of it and not be careening towards it super fast. So here's how to do some docking. Bearing to 0, or as close to it as possible. It doesn't need to be directly on it, but like less than a degree off is fine. Accelerate towards it, kill all the cross velocity so that we are aimed straight at it. And I'll just approach it at 70 meters a second. If you move too fast towards a target, it's very hard to initiate all of the docking protocols before you slam into the thing. So until you get used to the game, it's probably best to approach things under 100 meters a second so that you have, because you'll get a proximity alarm when you're within 5 kilometers. And if you're moving too fast, that 5 kilometer warning isn't enough to react in time, especially if you're busy or slow or something. Okay, and that is the proximity alarm telling us that we are indeed getting close to the tutorial derelict. So the current goal is to match speed, which honestly I never use. Matching speed I absolutely hate, but basically what it's saying is be stationary relative to another target. The reason I don't like this is if you have match speed on, your ship will constantly try to match speed, which means if you're trying to dock with it, your ship will actively be trying to stop you, which is annoying, which is why I never use this. Unless I'm like trying to sleep and like sit in space or something. But here's the match speed button. And as you can see, it kills our relative velocity. I'm going to turn it off because I do not like it. All right, now switch to comms again, and we are going to talk to this derelict. Basically, initiate boarding. So the derelict is this one at 4.5 kilometers away, and we're going to start the docking procedures for B4TJ8, which is its call sign. And it's also called the up for anything. We're going to go to the primary dock here. And now we're in the docking controls. And, you know, if you've seen Star Wars, we're just trying to line these things up. So I'm moving 31 meters per second towards it at a distance of 3.65 kilometers. My ETA is in about 2 minutes, just shy. And I am going to accelerate time until we're like 10 seconds away, rather than to accelerate. And there is some drift here, which I can use A and D to correct the drift so that we keep it dead center. It's not a big deal until we get really close, though. We were still a kilometer away. And now we're about 300 meters away. And at this point, what we're going to want to do is to hold S to start slowing down. So now my relative velocity to it is like, let's say 10 meters a second. And the game is pretty generous. Anything you hit at like under, let's say 30, 40 meters per second isn't really going to cause much damage. This is like a futuristic game, so impacts are lessened or whatever. So now I'm 50 meters away. And once it goes green, meaning that you're close enough and you're slow enough, you can clamp. So here we go. Clamp a line. And we have docked with the Up for Anything tutorial vessel. Next goal, put on my pressure suit. So I have to remove my jump suits and shoes to do it because you don't wear this stuff underneath. So I'm going to put my screwdriver back in my tote. I'm actually going to put the toolbox down. I do not need it. I emptied it, which frees up a hand. I'm going to put my shoes into my coveralls. And then my coveralls... actually, you know what? My coveralls into my toolbox. And now I can put on my pressure suit. And then put on my helmet. One thing to note about this pressure suit, it does not have a supply of oxygen. Basically, you're just airtight, breathing what is ever already in your suit, which doesn't give you a lot of time to work. Now, this ship here has some air in it that basically we borrowed from the space station we were on. It doesn't actually have its own source of air. It's airtight, but it doesn't have an oxygen tank. So any air that I let out is air I don't get to breathe, and if I do that, I'm dead. I'm like dead. This is a coffin ship. Any mistakes at this point, and I'm dead. So what I want to do is let's initiate the Explorer the Derelict by putting the work lamp in my hand and toggling it on and stepping into the derelict. But the process of stepping into the derelict is very specific. I have to stand on the outside of this primary airlock here, wait for the doors to close. Then I have to step in. And this preserves the gas, or specifically the oxygen is what I really care about, that is on my coffin ship and doesn't bleed it and leak it into this new area. Now, in my case, this room is pressurized at the moment. So this room actually has oxygen in it. As you can see, it's 23C at 1 kPa or 100 kPa, 102, whatever. But generally speaking, anytime your coffin ship docks something, you have to be careful. So pick up the permit and select read. So pick up and read. And this permit is valid for another 2 hours. So 2079, August 26th. Oddly, we're almost at that date in real life. Well, not year, but still. And then 1603, right now it's 1403, as you can see over here. So what this is a permit to do derelict salvaging, and it's valid for 2 more hours. All right, visualize power. So my ship has power. Their ship has a little bit of power, but it's broken. And what we're going to do is install conduit in order to access the derelict. So installing this conduit here will restore power to this door and allowing us to get to the rest of the derelict. Now, as you can see, because I hit G as in gamma or golf or whatever you want to say, it is vacuum behind this door. So if this door opens, any air that is in here goes poof out into space. Okay, the lights are back on. I'm going to check this rack over here. Rack has nothing in it. And we can see that it's vacuum on the other side of this door. And my current goal now is to find another route, to go to a crowbar that's here. But I can't get there. And the reason I can't get there is I do not have airlock permissions. Airlock permissions is in the roster here. And this is particularly useful when you have multiple crew members. Because if you don't want your crew members to, like, let's say, grab batteries or replace O2 bottles or remove their helmet, you can say, yeah, you're not permitted to do that. So in this case, I was previously not permitted to open airlocks, but now I am. Which allows me to travel over here. And to pick up this lovely crowbar. And I'm going to put it in my pressure suit. So I have a free hand still. Alright, goal. Use the crowbar to pry open the bridge door. Pry. And it's open. Whoever this was, they don't need it anymore. Take what you can from the lockers and bridge. The derelict bridge. A rush of gas escapes the bridge as you force open the door open. Once upon a time, this hot little number ferried penmen to Changtemen, Mars L4 to L5, and back. 48 people a pop, all the while rated for just 32. A whole fleet of them, just like it, ran that relay on gas blasts so fine and cheap they were hardly there at all. But in time, the operation evolves or dies. Mars is coming up in the worlds. Their workhorses turn into old nags, are sent out to pasture here in Kaleg, awaiting the tender mercies of a full shipbreaker's crew and an AO main bay. Kaleg receives one ship a week, every week, from anywhere and everywhere in the system. It has for almost 50 years. With a full head of steam, AOT Miwa can just about process one ship a week. Following exegesis of labor and best laid plans, there are now hundreds of ships in a backlog so long and convoluted that they would never see another human soul, let alone inside of a breaker's yard. That's where you come in. Okay, so things worth grabbing here. If we take a look around, there's a switch here. There's a Kang intake, which provides gas for your thrusters. There's a thruster and an oxygen bottle. And those are between the nav station, the thruster, and the bottle. That's just about everything that's worth taking here. But it's going to require some effort because I have a very finite amount of oxygen in my suit. So it's going to require some back and forth. So I'm going to fast forward time trying to install this oxygen bottle until I get a warning about running out of oxygen. Then I'm going to race back to my ship, cycle the airlocks, pop the helmet off, pop the helmet on, rinse, and repeat. And it's going to take maybe 10 cycles of this before I get everything that I want here. Now, what's important is I have no money. I have $100, which in this game is like nothing. Absolutely nothing. And I need a little bit of starting funds. Now, there's a lot of ways to make money on the station. There's things you can steal. There's people you can kill. There's gigs you can fulfill. But I'm planning on making at least my initial starting capital the like somewhat more legitimate way by breaking ships down and earning money to be able to start bounty hunting in earnest. So, big picture here. If we want to take the nav station is a 3x3 object, which would fit here. And then if I hold the oxygen tank in my hands dragging it around, and put the thruster here, I can bring everything I intend to bring. It's a bit much, but it's possible. So let's start on it. I'm going to start grabbing the thruster. And as you level up, you'll gain way better tools and skills to be able to do this stuff more efficiently and more quickly. And needless to say, one wrong airlock cycle and I'm dead. I have no hope of surviving. Maybe I can hold my breath until the ferry fetches me, but basically, I better have pennies to put in my eyes for the ferryman because I'm not likely to survive much longer. So we have to be very careful about cycling the airlock, and then even then, there's a finite amount of gas inside of my own ship. So it's not something that we're going to want to stay in for very long. Zippy, thank you for the resub. And Von Deathheart, too. And there it is. CO2 high. Now, the big first step for myself, once I have a little bit of starting capital, is to get some power tools. Because at the moment, I'm using like a cranked manual screwdriver. Kind of sucks. Very slow. And then once I have that, get myself a suit to work in that is not a pressure suit, but a Bingham suit. Like a proper spacesuit, if you will. And that will increase my survivability like 1,000-fold. Because I don't need to worry about cycling my airlock. I have oxygen supplied to me via my suit, rather than praying that I don't screw up the airlock cycling and just up and kill myself. And when I said I would have to do this process about 10 times, I was not kidding. That was not an exaggerated number. This is like cycle number 4 or 5, 3 or 4, and yeah, I'm not done. Come on. Door closed, door open. And what we're working towards is a salvage license, because my current salvage license runs up in 2 hours. And once that runs up, I have very little means of making legitimate money, short of maybe a gig or like black market salvage. So it would be best, in my best interest, to seek out legitimate means of employment going forward. All right, let's do the helmet. I'm actually going to do one weird thing with that oxygen bottle. I'm going to grab one of the floors over here. This is a floor panel. And I'm going to travel outside my ship to install it, rather than have to drag it. So I'm just going to install a floor panel like on the side of my ship to put the oxygen bottle down, or the oxygen tank. It's not a bottle. Calling it a bottle would be wrong. It's a large tank that could easily supply my ships with oxygen like 10 times over. And the reason I'm putting it on the outside is I want to sell it. But I don't want to have to drag it. So plopping it out here is a good way of doing that. Just using the supplies I have available to me. So there it is. That's the oxygen bottle. Or tank. Okay, the last piece is this nav station that I'm going to start uninstalling. And what's important about this is this thing is broken. And in order to repair it, I'm going to need replacement parts. I'm going to need a heatsink, a motherboard, 5 electronic parts, and steel. There is a lot of stuff like that on this ship, but this ship, with my like very finite amount of oxygen and how tenuous everything is, I don't want to be here any longer than I have to be. So I intend to just uninstall this thing and then race back to K-Leg. Because, for 2 reasons. One, if I spend too much time here, my salvage permit license will run up. And I won't be able to legitimately sell this thing. And then 2, I'm in a coffin ship. It's a death trap. I know it. I'm not so stupid to forget that one wrong move on this thing and I'm done forever. And I'd love not to have to save scum. So what I'm trying to say is if I salvaged the cables that are in the walls, I could get the electronic components. You know, if I broke down the king intake or, you know, there's a bunch of different ways to get the individual components that I need. But right now, my top priority is just getting the hell back to K-Leg and making my first few bucks. That's what's important. And this nav station will help me do that. Okay. So far, we have been very careful, and we've kept all the oxygen in our coffin not to be vented out. And a few more cycles of this, and we'll be done. So we're about half done uninstalling that nav console from the ground. In order to tell what is worth anything, there are dollar signs. So if I take a look at this thruster, there's a rough value of $3 If I had better business administration skills, I would know how much it's truly worth, but I don't have those skills. I'm just a bounty hunter. Or at the moment, I'm not even a bounty hunter. I'm just a shipwrecker. So that's how you would tell what is worth anything here. So the king intake is like $2 signs. The oxygen tank was maybe 3. This nav console's 3. It also does not take into consideration the repair value. Or if it's a container, anything that it... Well, that's not true of oxygen. But like, let's say it's a bin or a rack. It doesn't take into consideration the things that are inside of it. So you could have like $1 million item inside of a rack, and the rack's going to say, I'm a rack, you know, for price-wise. So a lot of this is just like, through experience, you will understand what is worth something and what isn't. And there is a there is a cartridge overlay for price info too. And if I had that, it would show that the nav station, the thruster, and the oxygen bottle are really the only things of particular value on this ship. There we go. Bingo 02 again. Back to the old coffin. Now, one thing to note is it's getting hot in my coffin as I keep exhausting the supply of finite air. So at some point, without proper atmospherics, it will get uncomfortably hot. Which is like, whatever. It's a little warm. It's not going to kill us unless it's going to scorch us. And we're almost done. 1 or 2 more cycles, and we'll be out of here. This little death trap rust bucket. Now, there are, as a stopgap measure, I could buy an oxygen candle, which is kind of expensive to buy early on, but a smart investment if I ever make a mistake and vent out my little coffin. Because a oxygen candle could replace the oxygen that I would have that I lose if I accidentally did a venting. Oh god. Okay, I need to wrap this up. We're crashing into an asteroid, or into a I guess an asteroid. Hurry up, Maris. The tutorial vessel is trying to park itself at 1036 Ganymede, and if you don't hurry, you're gonna go splat. Another reason to, you know, not linger here is certain death impact would be rough. All right, there we go. So all the items are dropped. Helmet's off. I'm going to hop on the nav station, decouple from this rust bucket that's about to go splat into Ganymede. Go to the nav map, and don't crash into Ganymede, the asteroid, because I don't want that. So we're heading back to K-Leg, and there's only a little bit of the tutorial left. I'm nearly done. So Up for Anything is about to enjoy some gravitational pull of death. And I got clear of Ganymede, the asteroid, here, because I can't take a straight path through a physical object for parking. But now that I'm clear of this thing, I can align my velocity, cross velocity, and start actually parking. Because up until now, I was just getting clear of going splat. There we go. A parking velocity of like 50 meters a second, which is fine. I'll be there in 1 minute. All right. Hailing K-Leg for docking. In Dock A. Wow. I was dead on with my parking. Done. Give me a license. Thank you for tuning in to Ostranauts Bounty Hunter, which originally streamed live on Twitch. If you have any questions for me, let me know in the comments below. If you'd like to catch a live stream of mine, Rhadamant.com has my stream schedule and countdown timers to upcoming streams. If you'd like to join my online gaming community on Discord, Rhadamant.com has a link to it, as does the description of this video. Thank you so very much for watching. Special thank you to my Twitch subscribers, Patreon patrons, and viewers like you that support the channel and made it all the way to the credits. Thank you so very much. I hope to catch you next episode or an upcoming stream. Farewell, my fellow shipwreckers.